Hello everybody, welcome to this SUPboarder video where we're going to be doing a review of the Duotone or Duotone AERO CARVE 2.0 DLAB foils. These newer step up in technology, more mid-aspect ratio foils are not set just for surfers and dedicated wave riders. They're set for a wide range of uses. You could be getting into this for prone foiling, sup foiling, wing foiling, or maybe even a bit of kite foiling as well. In this video, I'm going to give you a rundown of that range and give you our thoughts and impressions and hopefully help you decide if these foils are potentially right for you. So before we jump into this, remember, please subscribe to our YouTube channel if you find this video useful. Also, there's loads of other videos on sup and foiling. Also, check out SUPboarder Pro, which will give you the next level of sup and foil content. And we have the Ask the Expert service on there as well, which is where you can ask us as many questions as you want about anything related to do with sup and foil. And we'll definitely get back to you with a completely 100% independent answer from one of our experts. This service has definitely helped thousands of people get on the right kit for them or learn a certain maneuver. So many of you do find it an absolute bargain for a price of a beer each month. Also, if you want to find out more about maybe carbon versus aluminium, there's a really good video on our YouTube channel as well, which is where we drive into the differences between carbon and aluminium. Check that one out as well. So how have we been testing these foils? Well, we got on the water over several different sessions: subsurf foiling, flat water, wing foiling, freestyle winging, and also out in the surf and the waves with a wing as well. Taking the foils out across many different sessions in those types of different conditions really gives us a good idea of how these foils work on the water. And really, how user-friendly are they going to be maybe for a certain level of rider or a certain type of riding conditions. How I'm going to lay this video out is I'm going to go over the specifications and what foils we've actually been riding, give you a little bit of rundown about each session and how they were in those sessions, finishing off pros and cons and really highlighting who should be buying these foils at the end of the video. But remember, any other questions or comments, get them on the Ask the Experts and also get the comments below this video as well. So remember, in this video, we're really going to be talking more of the DLAB range of foils. You can get a SLS range of foils, which are very similar to these foils, and you will be able to transfer a lot of this, which we're speaking about, across into that range as well. But the DLAB, just remember, it's just the better, more refined, better qualities, just slightly more performance-driven base foils. They're not more technical to use than the SLS, they just give you a little bit more at the same riding level, so smoother, faster, stiffer. It's just a nicer riding foil. The SLS is still a very good range of foils. They're just a cheaper price point. Like the 1100 setup in the SLS range is sitting at £1,848. But looking at the equivalent setup in a DLAB, you're looking at £2,457. A lot more of a jump up in price point, but they're still a relatively cheap price point compared to other foils of the same quality and construction on the market as well. So you are getting quite a lot of foil for the money. So the two foils that we've been using the 1100 and the 850 with the AERO P stabilizer in a 180 and a 200 size. The mast we've been using actually has been the SLS mast. Still a carbon mast, but it's not that high modulus carbon. So remember, in the video, if we're talking about top speeds, the mast thickness will make a difference to this. The real difference between the DLAB and the SLS range of front foils is the fuselage is integrated into the foil on the DLAB range. The SLS is separate, more traditional. You've got a bigger fuselage and you bolt your tail and your front wing on. The DLAB is integrated and you do get a smaller tail section that you bolt through. Very cleverly made, very good connection points, give you an incredibly stiff feel on the water. And that's again where the DLAB is coming in, giving you that more performance, stiffer, more responsive base foil. We've been using that with the 43 centimeter tail fuselage section, which is equivalent about a 66 main fuselage when you measure it all together. You can also get that in 37 centimeter tail fuselage. So now I'm going to give you a feeling of these foils on the water. First off, I'm going to give you our feedback after using them in SUP surfing conditions. Using them SUP surfing is a really great way of understanding how a foil feels, because Unlike when you've got a wing in your hand and you can rely on that wing a little bit, it's all about the foil. The speed generated, the balance, everything is about the foil. Now, the first thing to note is these foils are incredibly easy to ride on the wave. You can go into turns and you can just carve really hard and the foil just responds. But at the same time, you haven't got to worry about regulating your height so much. It just feels like a very smooth to use foil in the surf. They do have relatively low stall speeds, so you can keep up on the foil and keep surfing even on the weaker waves. When it comes to pumping back out and getting back onto waves, they're not the easiest or quickest foils to pump. They're not really designed for that sort of thing, but they're definitely a little bit harder. That was one of the things we noted. To be fair though, remember we are using the slightly thicker SLS mast, but still the foils just didn't really feel that they really wanted to pump effortlessly, and you definitely had to work at it a little bit more. If you're looking at combinations of tail wings and front wings, the 850 with the 180 stabilizer is going to be way quicker to turn. It's way more responsive. Not going to give you so much forgivingness as the 1100 with the 200 stabilizer. It's a much more of a smoother setup, keeps the flow a little bit more, not so dramatic in the turns. Now, when it comes to winging, definitely the first thing we've noticed is the stall speed of these foils. They just seem to keep flying, keep you up, keep you foiling a lot of the time. They're very responsive, very maneuverable to flow yourself into tacks. You don't feel the foil wants to drop off. It really helps you through those turns, helps you keep that speed up. They're a lot more carvy than the Aero free range of foils from Duotone. And you can really notice that sort of thing when you're going into tacks, or just very easy just to get your board to turn. If we're talking about the 1100 particularly, that felt like it had two sort of gears when it came down to it. Had a very slow stall speed, but when you're riding at that sort of position, it rode with the nose up a little bit high on your board, not too high, just a little bit higher. And then when you get up to a faster speed, the board flattens off and the board still has a very good overall speed. The 850 though, compared to the 1100 is, again, it's faster, way more responsive on the turns. Again, it's something we're going to expect, obviously, jumping onto a smaller foil. Still the same characteristics as the bigger one. Will actually said to me a quite interesting thing. He feels the 850 actually keeps you flying more than the 1100 because it's going faster. So it gives you that more speed through those transitions to allow you to make the transition or make the maneuver you're trying. So the 1100's got a slower stall speed, but because the 850 goes faster, it keeps you riding and flow over the foil for longer. You did seem to get a lot of pop off these foils, and that is, again, with the SLS mast. If you went for the full DLAB mast, you're going to get a much stiffer and quicker response. So for you freestylers out there, very nice to get yourself into jumps, get yourself lofting those airs. When it comes to winging in the waves, we had a pretty full-on session actually in some quite big surf, and it was a good tester for these. Again, similar to the SUP surf foiling, very easy and responsive and forgiving when it comes to dropping down and turning the waves, especially if the waves aren't really sort of on your side. I mean, they're sort of jacking up, there's bumps in the face. That's quite hard conditions to ride a wing foil in. When it comes to breaching and maybe using these foils in the surf where you're not riding yourself properly on the mast, they were forgiving as well with this. They didn't slam you back down like some other brands do. So again, very comfortable when it comes to not riding your foils really well in perfect conditions. When it comes to using these foils in more top end conditions, higher winds, more gustier higher winds, or really top end speeds, maybe going too fast on the wave, we did find that they didn't have so much of a high end hold, so you'd have to change down foil size or your front wing a bit earlier. So you don't really want to be riding them overpowered, you want to be riding them really in that comfortable sweet spot. But when you're in that spot, they do feel effortless. So let's sort of summarize with some cons, pros, and who should be buying these foils. So looking at the cons or the negatives to these foils, pumping and linking waves. If you're after a foil to get back out and link another wave, these aren't the most efficient foils. Yes, a DLAB mast will help this, give you a bit more stiffness, a bit less drag, but they're not the best pumping based foils. Top end speed when it comes to winging, they're not the fastest foils. The 850 is definitely quicker than the 1100. That's pretty standard to say. It would also help with the DLAB mast being thinner. That'd be another thing that's worth having. So if you really are a speed freak and you're wanting a foil that's really, really quick, they're probably not the foils to look at. but they do give you that so much more forgiving nature. So it's a bit of a trade-off between forgiveness, fun on the water, and top speed. And the other con, I've just said it earlier, you might need to change down your foil size earlier. They don't handle that top end wind or overpowered surf as well as some other foils. Again, it's a bit of a trade-off. I personally think it's a trade-off I'm more than happy to have. So definitely you might need to change down front wings a little bit earlier than some other brands. Looking at pros, well, there's quite a few pros. So let's start with the connection between the fuselage and the mast. All connects together really nicely. Very simple, very easy to use. It's nice how you can actually have, like we did, an SLS mast on a DLAB based system, and then you could upgrade to a DLAB mast in the future. The plug and play nature for these foils is going to be a really big plus for a lot of people out there, us included. The way that it is so forgiving, especially in doing maneuvers on waves, doing turns. Every time you go to do a carving maneuver, they just feel very comfortable, planted and easy, and they don't really want to catch you out and throw you off. They're just very smooth and effortless to use. Probably the slow stall speed probably really helps with this as well. So if you're more of an intermediate rider and you're trying to get those jibes and tacks coming out on the foil all of the time, that is really going to help you make those maneuvers and stay on foil much more. It definitely feels like there's a big step up in performance and rideability compared to the original Carve 1.0 series. I think Duotone having the SLS range and the DLAB range for these foils is a great move, because a lot of people are going to probably be able to get into the sport or be a very low level with the SLS range, and then they're going to naturally move themselves on to the DLAB range. Or maybe you're coming into it and you're a bit more of an intermediate rider already, you jump straight into the DLAB range if you can afford it. But again, you haven't got to go for the mast, you can just go for the front wing and fuselage and tail wing, and then bolt a SLS mast on it. Keeps the price down a little bit. And bringing price point in there, for a high modulus carbon foil, they're actually pretty reasonable. Okay, you can obviously look for the cheaper SLS range, but if you've got the money, and it's definitely not as much money as the comparable foils on the market, and because they're so user-friendly, they do make a very attractive option for a lot of people out there at that intermediate level. But let's jump into who we really think should be buying these foils. Who would they be best for? Now, you could be a newer base foiler, but really you need to know how to fly, you need to know how to get up onto foil. You're talking intermediate really, ideally, mainly because of the sizes of the foils. They're not that big. The 1100 is a good all-round size, and a lot of you are going to probably go for that for the lighter wind winging for an average weight. But if you could jump off from a big fat foil onto these foils, you're going to get a bit more out of it. So definitely more of the intermediate to advanced riders. Probably somebody who wants to do all types of foiling, happy winging, happy freestyle winging, happy just cruising, bump and jump winging, bit of sup surfing as well. But again, you're not looking to pump without power. You're always going to be just wave riding and then paddling back out on the flat, or you're going to be using your wing. You're not looking to link waves and to generate that speed just with a foil. They're not the type of foils for that. There's lots of other foils on the market that are going to do that better. But if you're looking for a foil that's easy to use, but still isn't going to hold you back with your progression, so you're still going to be able to learn lots and you're not going to get bored with them after a year or so, then that is where this foil range sits in. I think they're going to allow you to progress quicker, a lot of you out there, from that intermediate level and up, because they're so forgiving, and they really are going to help a lot of you out there with those jibes that you're trying to keep flowing out of the turns. That is where these foils will really end up helping you. So all in all, we're pretty chuffed with the Duotone AERO CARVE 2.0 DLAB range of foils. We're lucky enough to ride lots of different foil brands, whether it was Fanatic foils in the past or Duotone foils now. They've always seemed to be very easy and smooth and comfortable to use. But the foils are still ready to allow you to go to the next level as well, which is for many of us what we're all looking for in the first place. A smooth, comfortable foil that's easy to use and ready for us to progress. And that is the AERO CARVE 2.0 DLAB range. I hope you found this video interesting and informative. If you've used these foils, please let us know in the comments below. If you've got lots more questions, get them on the Ask the Experts feature. Definitely check out our other videos on YouTube and of course SUPboarder Pro. Thank you very much for listening to me. My name is Ruben and we'll see you on another video soon.